Yeah, I'm going to go into that for sure. Any other questions on the short right over there?
Two quick questions. One is, what was most challenging about putting this together? You look back now. The second one is, when you think of your initial story and how you envisioned this, and when you latched onto the Thoreau sort of themes, how did those change in the final version? Was there a lot of editing or on-the-spot changing? I'm just curious, not being a filmmaker myself, how that sort of worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the first question was biggest challenge. There were a lot of enormous challenges. I think the funding was probably the biggest challenge. That's, again, another whole story, but I think it was around March of 2008, I sort of had to make a decision of whether to go forward. Because we were going to lock in, commit to doing it with the school, and we were going to film it in May just after school let out for summer. And so the timing was very important, and there was this window, and we had to commit to doing it or not. And so around March of 2008, I had maybe $3,000 out of that $10,000 that I needed. And it literally was like this massive leap of faith. Like, I feel like I was born to do this. I'm going for it. And that's what I did. And literally the money was coming in up to the last week, and it came in, and people were donating things. I mean, even the camera that we were able to get, we got for a ridiculously low rate. And, it's story after story. But the biggest challenge was sort of walking by faith in a way and saying, I feel like I'm called to do this. I'm going to believe the resources are going to be there. So that was incredibly stressful, but very, very rewarding. And then your second question?
Was related to your story and the development.
And how did it change?
How did it change, and were there last minute changes? Was that something sort of set and okay, this is what I'm doing, I'm visualizing exactly how this film's going there? I'm just curious how that evolved.
Yeah, it did change. It is funny how when you write a script, you have this picture in your head, and then when it actually comes to reality, and you're on the set shooting, things do look very different. And one good example is the cabin. For whatever reason, when I had first written this, I pictured these kids like discovering some old ruin or, crumbling building and just, thinking, oh, that's cool, we're going to explore. And then, Henry had also discovered it and was just hanging out at this old ruin, writing or journaling or something. So maybe only a month before the shoot, we had searched and searched for this ruin, this location, this fictional, made-up spot that they would find. We could not find anything that really would work well. So it was a last-minute decision to say, okay, they just find him at the cabin. And then it was a matter of like pulling together the resources to build something last minute. So that's just an example. Oftentimes it's often budgetary restrictions that bring about the most resourcefulness. And really, I feel like make for a better product in the end, because when you have to be resourceful and creative in coming up with solutions to solve these problems, the end product is often better. And to this day, I'm so happy it worked out that way, because I feel like it's a much better film for having the cabin and having that, such an important piece of Thoreau represented. So, over there.
I was going to say that this is about the fourth time I've seen your movie, and it's kind of mandatory viewing at my house. And my 7-year-old and my 5-year-old mother.
Awesome. That's so good to hear.
I think the thing that I like the best about the way that you portray Thoreau is that you make him, I've always imagined him at Walden as being kind of mystical, kind of weird, kind of very committed to his ideals. And that's the way that I always like to imagine him when he's at the pod, and I think that you nailed pretty well on his personality.
Oh, thank you.
I just think it's a really great movie.
Thank you so much. That is actually really good to hear, because that's something I've often wondered. And in fact, one of the questions I had for all of you was, does his personality as portrayed kind of resonate with the vision that we collectively have for Thoreau? Because that was my picture of him, but I've always wondered, that kind of quirky, very philosophical guy. I mean, is that working for everybody?
I couldn't understand a word he said.
Had a hard time? Okay. Yeah, maybe the audio is kind of, that was another one of our biggest challenges was getting good production audio. So that's partly the fault of the film, and then maybe the dynamics of the room.
Slight accent of some sort, and that made it difficult.
Okay, sorry about that. Right there.
But I think, from what I read, it was much nicer to children. So I'd be curious if in the expanded edition you had interaction with adults. I assume it would be somewhat different. But I think you captured it well.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Thank you. Right there.
Melanie, what are you telling the children?
What am I telling? Good question. We are basically reviewing the scene right before shooting it. So most likely, if I remember correctly, I'm trying to give them some kind of emotional hook to grab onto for their lines. And in this scene, they're both supposed to be very discontent with their lot. And Ace, the boy, is kind of he knows, like he's aware that when his mom says, "Oh, it's gonna get better. We're gonna have a better house," he knows that she's just saying that. But Ava, the little girl, doesn't know. And so I think what's happening in the scene is he finally is like letting on to it, in front of his sister, like, no, that's not gonna happen. And Thoreau sees this, and I mean, it breaks his heart in a way. It's like, no, you still have a lot to live for, So I think that's probably it, like helping them get into that mode of like, you guys are kind of bummed right now. So, right there.
I had a question about the little girl that they left behind when they ran off. Yeah, the mother was gone, the two big kids go away, and there's
Right.
I freaked.
Good question. There actually are a couple of extras in the background, which you can only see in one shot, and so I think no one ever really notices it. But there's like a mother and two little girls in the background by the other shanty. So what's supposed to happen is that girl sees them running and kind of goes to watch, but that's sort of lost on most people because you can't really see them. So, yeah, sorry about that. And in the back over there.
The fact that you had this family living within walking distance of this cabin, as I recall, during that time, a lot of the more impoverished families in Concord lived in that area. So there's some historical truth to that, which led me to wondering, when you go to a larger film, how much will you be working with consultants to know a good deal about the history, how much of the actual history of his life, stories of his life will you weave in and then work with audiences creatively, because I'm sure you need to have balance there.
Right. Oh, good question. The question was, how much do we plan to use consultants and historians when we're going about creating the feature film? And I feel like the stakes for the big film are way higher than even for this one. So that is going to be huge. And even dialogue coaches, and you mentioned the accent. When it comes to doing a full movie, like for me at least, it's so important to get all of that stuff right. And obviously, creative license will have to be taken in some areas. It just is a given. But as far as possible to be authentic to the time and to the, even the way they spoke. That was probably one of the hardest things about writing the feature script, was trying to talk like they talked, back then, and come up with phrases and just colloquial stuff that they would have said. So, but yeah, that's very important.